Do you as a B2B consultant need a strategy? In this video, I'm going to argue that you don't, or at least you don't need what is commonly associated to be a strategy. What is described in, the big books on strategy, like by Michael Porter, The Five Forces, or Richard Rumel's Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. You don't need any of that, but you do need a common sense plan. And in today's video, I'm going to break down what that common sense plan is. The stuff of the books is far more complicated than it is really useful for people who want to grow from, let's say, 0 to 20K a month, anywhere there. You want to grow to 7 figures. You do not need a strategy. Even if you just want to start out and you want to get to 6 figures, let's say 200,000 a year, you really don't need what is commonly considered a strategy. What you do need is a goal and a credible plan to get there. And in today's video, we're going to really strip it down to the bare bones of what it is that you need. And frankly, I often feel like tearing my non-existent hair out when I hear people who haven't sold a penny of their services yet and who are planning to revolutionize a particular market and go against the grain of what most people are doing and launch services that no one has seen before. That is one of the toxic influences of strategy, that we are putting strategy on such a pedestal. And so let us boil things down to the basics in this video. But at the same time, we do want to have a bit of an objective plan on the market and what we are trying to accomplish and heed a few common sense rules. For example, recently I spoke to a consultant who has been beating his head against the wall for 6 months. And all this time he was trying to figure out how he can sell to a market that, as I told him in our conversation, doesn't have any money. He was planning to sell to pre-seed startup founders, right? And those are people who are kind of by definition don't have any money to spend. They have an idea, a dream, they are pitching for investment, and he wants to sell them a 2 or 3K a month retainer deal, right? It's virtually impossible to sell that. So what we do need is a couple of common sense rules. We need a goal, a plan of how we get there, and we need daily execution. And that's what we're going to break down today. Before we get into goal setting, making a plan, and executing, we have to heed a couple of rules. So let's get into the rules first that we need to heed before we start with actually the strategy or the plan. So let's go with the rules. Rule of business number 1, pick a niche that has money. Far too many people make this mistake that they don't pick a niche that at least can afford, has a problem that they can afford to spend, let's say, at least $1,000 a month to solve. I already mentioned the guy who is selling to pre-seed founders of startups, right? No way they can spend 2K a month. But it's not only about having the money, it's also there needs to be a pain point. This niche has to have a pain point that is worth spending money on. I once spoke to an environmental consultant who wants to educate companies and coach company founders to make their employees more sustainability conscious, more environmentally friendly. Sounds great, but it's not something that people will spend money on. And the best litmus test for whether you've chosen the right niche offer combination is the following. Give yourself an hour, maximum of an hour, preferably 15 minutes, but an hour is okay. And find at least one, but preferably 3 competitors who are doing exactly what you want to do. Like find that one environmental consultant who is seemingly successful in coaching companies to making their employees more sustainability conscious. And it should not be an adjacent thing. No. It should actually be this. It should be their tagline. We help companies make their employees more sustainability conscious, and something like this. That needs to be the thing. Similarly, the Mr. Startup guy, he should find a consultant who is a tech advisor to pre-seed startups and is making money with that. He's not somebody who has already cashed out and is doing it pro bono. No, he's somebody who's actually charging money for this. If you cannot find a competitor who does exactly what you want to be doing, it means you're being too creative and you have not picked a niche offer combination that can actually pay you. If you haven't found anybody, you are building a castle in the air. And please, for the love of God, do not sell to this niche. Copy someone. Choose an established niche that based on your background, you can add value in, and then do a boring business. Just copy somebody. You can copy your way to a million. I promise you can copy your way to a million. Far more, and incomparably more people are struggling for trying to be too creative and creating castles in the air that nobody wants to buy than those people who are struggling because competition is so tough in the niche that they've chosen. You can always do reasonably well in even a competitive field if you are good enough at what you do. But you can never conjure up something that is your brainchild that the market does not want to buy. Rule of business number 2, 1 avatar, 1 offer. Don't try to sell different things to different people. Really only sell one thing to one person. Now, important, you can still sell to people who come to you inbound, maybe via referral. You can still sell them something completely different. But when it comes to your shop window and how you approach the market with your prospecting, for example, you should only sell that one thing because you need to be perceived as an expert for that one thing alone to that particular niche. And please bear in mind that any kind of white collar work is now global. Okay. So the more you spread yourself out, the more you are the Chinese restaurant who's also selling pizza and also selling kebab and also selling sushi, the less you will be perceived as an expert in your field and the fewer people will want to work with you. Also, the people who will want to work with you are going to be worse. They will not be as accomplished because if I just know that I'm a plumber and I want to run Facebook ads, I'm going to pick the person who's only running Facebook ads for plumbers. So don't worry about niching down too much in this white collar world that is completely global. And believe me, I am working with people between California and Singapore. Right now, I'm talking to somebody in Hawaii. So I'll be able to even make my radius even larger. I'm going to go from Hawaii to Singapore. Okay. And all these people across the world work with me. They know that I'm in Austria, and that's perfectly fine because I am for them. So don't think you don't have any geographic advantage anymore. You need to be specialized in one thing. That's why you need to be perceived as the avatar expert and that offer expert. So one thing to sell, one thing to one person. One additional point here, Alex Hormozi calls it one avatar, one offer, one channel. I don't necessarily agree with one channel because, for example, if you were to pick LinkedIn, LinkedIn would not give you enough opportunity to approach, let's say, 100 people every day, 200 people every day. LinkedIn won't do that for you. So you need to slightly widen out. Like if you do, for example, LinkedIn plus cold email, that's fine. That is a good combination of two channels and you're going to get to your goal. Rule of business number 3, one client acquisition channel that can scale without you. So that's why, for example, networking is not a good client acquisition channel because you will always need to do the networking and you need to prepare for the future. Got to have something in place that somebody else can take over for you. For example, cold email. Like I now have a system in place where I have 3 people working for me who are doing administrative work in the background. They are sending out cold emails. They are managing the content that I'm sending out in the cold emails. The only thing I have to do is a little bit of personalization. I send that to them and they do everything else in the background. So of the entire pool of work that is being done for me to book calls via cold email and LinkedIn, I may be doing 5 to 10%. Everything else is being done by my team. That is an acquisition channel that scales. If your acquisition channels are in-person event, networking, catching up with people, unless your customer lifetime value is like in the 6 figures, let's say you have $100,000 clients, it's going to be really hard for you to network your way to $1 million revenue. So try to find the client acquisition channel that scales. Rule number 4, always spend at least 20% on your client acquisition channels. That is a mistake I see so many people make. They get many clients, all of their time is spent on client delivery, and they don't invest anything in building client acquisition systems. Well, guess what? 3 months later, 2 clients fall off the wagon and one cancels on you and another one is whatever, goes bankrupt. And what do? Now you're suddenly, okay, you have to start networking. So it's a constant up and down. You're capped by your hourly rate and you can never grow beyond that if you don't have client acquisition systems in place. Because once you have them in place, you will know that you can basically get an infinite amount of clients. And that's when you then start thinking about a vehicle, which is going to be our next point. But let's stay with rule number 4 for a while. Because once you see the power that you can get complete strangers to get on a serious sales call with you, where you have really activated their pain points, they see that you could be the solution to their problems. Once you have found that combination, it gives you so much power and so much leverage. You now can start thinking, well, what vehicle can I build? Can I hire people? Can I build like a course and group coaching program so that I can serve a more down market audience? That's when you can start thinking about scaling. But before you have that in place, you will never be willing to invest in scaling because you will be so happy that you're completely booked out, that you are serving many clients at the same time, that this will be your horizon. This will be your absolute limit that you can fulfill. Now, number 5, pick a vehicle to achieve scale. There's a couple of areas where you can achieve scale. Mostly it is about either hiring people, right, to do some work for you. And there it's always better to hire unskilled people than hiring skilled, because skilled take a while to train, plus they are more likely to leave you and they're not as easily replaceable. So preferably lower skilled people. Another area is skill, like becoming truly one of the best at what you do in the world is a form of leverage. You can make it to 7 figures that way. There's a consultant I heard about recently. Her name is April Dunford, and she is specializing in helping tech companies position themselves. So she's all about positioning for tech startups. And also because she has a great network from a previous job, she has a lot of senior experience that allows her to get, presumably, I don't know her business exactly, but she says that she has a 7-figure business purely herself and maybe a couple of support, but she herself makes 7 figures with skill and network. It is possible. It's the top 0.1%. Another lever would be software. If you can build some kind of a software tool, it's a little bit harder, right? You'd have to really invest into this. And another one, which is a little bit easier to achieve, would be some kind of a media element with it. For example, this is what we've chosen. We have a relatively lower skilled team. Doesn't mean I love them. They're great, but they are sort of relatively easily replaceable. They are just, those are processes that they have to run through and they just need to execute, right? So that's our form of leverage, plus a media and content portal. We are effectively an educational company. We teach our clients how to implement client acquisition systems. They execute based on our advice, which is in the form of videos, worksheets, and all kinds of other media that they do in their own time. That is our form of leverage. That is the vehicle that you will need to pick in order to scale. So think about what can that be for you? How would you like to achieve more with less? That is essentially the definition of leverage. Final rule: ignore competitors. You don't need to think about competitors when you are a solopreneur, when you are a B2B consultant, even a small firm. You don't have to think about competitors. The market is big enough. You're not big enough to even have to think about competitive positioning. When you're McKinsey, you have to, but when you are a small consultant, you don't have to. So just leave this out. What's far more important is that you focus on your client delivery, you deliver a good service, you know how to sell, and you know how to market. That's it. No thinking about competitors needed. What is the next step? Step number 2, we have to set a goal. And here it's important not to make the goal too far out, right? Don't make it too lofty. Oh, I want to solve world hunger, or even I want to become a multi-deca billionaire, whatever it is. Make the goal what is really just the next step. If you are right now at 0, just make the goal that is something that is, wow, that would be great. That would be almost life-changing, but still realistic. So if you're at 0, make the goal 10K, for example. If you're at 10K, what makes you think, oh my God, could I do that? Like 30K, for example. And when you are at 30K, you're going to think at 100K, and so on, a month, of course. And the reason why we want to keep it just to the next step is because when you make the goal too lofty and too grand, you are far more tempted to slack off when the world throws a curveball at you. If you get a setback, it's very easy to take a 6-month vacation from your grand old plan of solving world hunger. But if the plan is to get to 100K a month pretty quickly, then it's really hard to come up with an excuse for why you're taking 6 months off. That's why you want to keep it really humble. Sure, you can keep in the back of your head that you have this grand old goal of solving world hunger, or even like a more selfish goal that you want to be a multi-deca billionaire, but make sure that the steps are outlined. All right, step number 3, make a plan. And the plan is best done with North Stars in 3 areas. You gotta have a North Star in each one of those areas. That is, let's talk about client delivery. In client delivery, you have to make sure that clients are getting the results you're promising them. If you're a consultant, you have to make sure that you're so competent that when you work on the client's problem, that you actually solve it. When you run a coaching program, you have to make sure that clients are seeing the success and that you're getting testimonials. That's one part of client delivery. The second part is your client delivery of a kind that you can scale it to 7 figures? For example, if right now you have 5 clients and they're paying a cumulative $250,000 a year and you are maxed out, you're working 40 hours a week, for example, then it's a problem. You will not be able to just 4x that to get to $1 million. There's no 160 hours a week that you can work. So we have to figure out some kind of vehicle. That's why we've decided on a vehicle up front. What is the vehicle that will help you get there? Hire skilled staff, or build a kind of content portal, coaching program, build a software tool. Something that we've decided here, we have to have now a clear plan on how we're going to achieve that. That means, for example, make a plan for the next 3 months. I need to start hiring a client delivery person. I need to start hiring an operations person. So client delivery consists of client results and the vehicle. Make a plan for achieving, so constantly improving these 2 things. Building the vehicle and improving client results. Number 2, where you need a North Star, is sales. You simply need to approach enough people so that you have a realistic chance of hitting the number. Let's say that your average customer lifetime value is $50,000. Let's also assume that you convert 10% of your sales calls. Okay. In order to hit $50,000 times 20, which means we're making $1 million a year, we need to close approximately one new client every 2 weeks with a little bit of wiggling room there. Sometimes it can be 3 weeks, but every 2 weeks, roughly, we should close one client. Great. If we have a sales call conversion rate of 10%, that means that we need 20 sales calls a month, which means roughly one a day. Now we have to think, how many cold emails do we have to send in order to get one sales call a day? Well, give it a try, right? Send a couple of hundred cold emails and we will see how many sales calls we book. Maybe it's 1%. Okay, that means we have to send, our North Star is we have to send 100 cold emails every day so that we hit one sales call a day, which will translate to 20 a month, which will translate to 2 clients a month. Boom, that is our North Star. So now we have to set the infrastructure and the ability to craft the cold email, including everything, including all the ancillaries. And we need to make sure we're sending 100 cold emails a day. That's our North Star for sales. North Star for marketing is a little bit, in my opinion, less important, unless you have a real knack for content where you just, if you start a YouTube channel, if you really put a lot of effort into LinkedIn, then you know that enough clients will come to you. The problem with marketing and putting out content and so on is always that it's really unpredictable. Like I recently spoke to a lady who has set up a really complex system where she adds people using an automation on LinkedIn. Once the person accepts, then Zapier grabs their email address and puts it into ActiveCampaign, which then shoots them like regularly, nurturing email sequences and so on. Maybe, yeah, it's a lot of work that it will take to get there. And we don't know if they will book. Like if you can set all this up and you have a predictable way of booking calls, okay, fine. If that, then it's effectively a sales vehicle if it's directly geared at call booking. But just to kind of nurture people and give newsletters and so on is just too unpredictable, in my opinion. That's why I consider marketing, when you want to make a big sales push, when you want to really get to the next level from 30K a month to 100K a month, marketing is, in my opinion, secondary. Get to that next level and then backfill it with marketing then. That's currently my plan. I'm now doing a really big sales push to get to 100K a month. And I'm still doing a little bit of marketing. I'm still doing these videos, but I don't expect much to come from it. I get on average 1 or 2 clients from my content a month, but that is sort of the cherry on the cake. The majority of my sales comes from my outreach. And that is what I'm now scaling so that I have all these systems in place so I can do more outreach. Marketing currently plays a second fiddle. But even here, the North Star for marketing is, for me, for example, put out 1 high-quality long-form YouTube video a week, create 5 YouTube shorts, and 2 LinkedIn posts. That is my marketing plan. That is my marketing North Star. So now, this is the bulk of the work. You have defined with all those rules in mind. You have a goal. You create a plan. You set a North Star in each of these areas. And this is now what you work on. And now comes the 4th point, which is execute, which is no trivial matter. It's, of course, the most important of all of those, because even if you don't have much of a plan, even if you are, your goals are wobbly, but you execute every day, if you actually, without any of that, you just were to send out 100 good cold emails every day, you will still be far more likely to hit the goal than if you have everything but the execution, obviously, right? So here we have to really make sure that our calendar is blocked for those most important activities. You want to give yourself like an absolute rule. It's a must that every week you have to work at least 7 hours on client delivery activities, improving the product, making sure that your vehicle becomes a reality, hiring people, for example. Let's say 7 hours on this, then sales, 20 hours a week on devising the system and actually executing on it, sending out those cold emails, getting the virtual assistants to send those emails. And in marketing, have a video editor in place. Set aside the time to actually create the content, to script this. And just make sure that every week you execute and that you do not, and that you have a protocol, that you even have a protocol for when disruptions come. Let's say you get sick. Okay, how will you make up for those lost 3 days? Let's say that something happens in the house, some kind of repair that you have to do, or the car breaks, right? There has to be some slack in your week where you say, all right, now I'm just going to work the whole weekend through because I need to hit my numbers. Voila, you have a strategy.